Maybe maybe Nicole might be able to help us when we start. I gotta say this. Sorry about this. Look it. Anyone who knows me would not accuse me of having difficulty standing up in front of people and speaking. But this was so important to me that I kind of had to write a little bit down, all right? 10 years ago, we had a little celebration for Steve's 40th birthday. Some of you may have been here. Okay, who was here? Anyone? Wow, I didn't know it was that few. I got nothing. Enjoy the evening, enjoy your meal. I'm kidding. Back then, you know, there were some people who got up and said some very nice words about Steve, and I wasn't one of them. And I regretted that. There was something about the flow of the night or something, and it didn't feel right. Okay, I've known Steve longer than anybody in this room. We met in high school, so I've always felt kind of a little bad about that. So tonight I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I don't give a crap. I'm saying something, and you folks are going to sit and listen to it. So, I want to start off with saying that, yeah, get another drink if you need to, go to the bathroom or whatever. This could take a few minutes. Anyway, I had to laugh, you know, because Heather called me, I don't know, 2 months ago, a few weeks ago, and she asked if I'd be willing to say a few words, and I was kind of laughing because I had already been making plans to say a few words. Yeah, no problem. It's the easiest thing in the world for me to stand up here and say things about Steve, my best friend. By the way, if this little talk sounds a little bit like a eulogy, well, I'm sorry about that. You know, I guess in some ways it is. It's the death of youth and the resurrection of new life after 50, right? How appropriate is it we're in the Easter season. Anyway, you know, the other thing is, statistically speaking, I'm probably going to die first anyway, so I'm not going to get the opportunity to speak at his funeral. So there you go, right? Anyway, unlike 10 years ago, this party was not conceived as a surprise. In fact, it was Steve's idea. He wanted to get together and celebrate life. And I think that's a great idea. Sorry.
I wrote your speech.
You did? Oh, I'll try not to say too much of it. He wanted to celebrate the fact that God has given him these 50 years, especially since so many of us may not get that opportunity. So many may not. So it's a privilege for me to be here celebrating with him and his family, and I suspect you all feel the same, and I think you do. I've known Steve longer, as I mentioned, longer than anyone here. We met as freshmen at De La Salle Collegiate High School in Detroit. It's a high school that's not too different from St. John's Prep. I credit him with saving me from myself, because as an impressionable freshman, I started off gravitating towards a group of guys who maybe weren't so nice. Fortunately, the alphabet was on our side, which enabled the R's to be near the W's, okay, in our French class. So I remember vividly our seats in French class. It was room 10 at the old school. We were right across from each other. I learned pretty quickly that it didn't take much to amuse Steve. I think you all know that. And, you know, having had 4 brothers who already went through the school, I knew a little bit about De La Salle. So, you know, for fun, you know, I knew a lot about their teachers. For fun, and I guess because I was just a typical smart-ass freshman, every time we had a quiz in French class, I would raise my hand and ask Mr. Alberti how many points the quiz was going to be worth. And of course, he would answer 20 points, as it was for the past 10 years. It was always 20 points. And for some unforeseen reason, Steve always got a kick out of that. So, I mean, it really was my first memory of experiencing Steve's signature laugh, and I've been addicted ever since, for sure. Steve always made me feel like I was a lot funnier than I actually am, as you can see. In some ways, our relationship is like one big, long inside joke. For example, there are only 3 people in the world who know how to respond to the question, what'd he do? Now, I know that doesn't make any sense to you guys. See what I mean, though? To most people, the phrase frappe à la porte means nothing special, if anything at all. But as you can see, he's still giggling about it there. If I were to, how about if I were to walk up to you and say, "What are you doing? This lady's been around the world in a balloon," you wouldn't know what the hell that was. I mean, there he is. He's giggling. I mean, I could really go on all night. I mean, it's really like shooting fish in a barrel. Anyway, seriously though, one of the joys in my life is making my friend laugh, and I am very grateful for that. Although we went to the same high school, Steve and I are from different backgrounds. I'm the sixth from a family of 8, raised in a declining neighborhood of Detroit. Steve is the youngest of 4, pretty far removed in age from his 2 oldest siblings, his oldest brother and his sister. And in the years I knew him, he lived in Grosse Pointe Shores, which is a very nice inner ring, suburb of Detroit. We were definitely from opposite sides of the train tracks. If we were typical high school students, we probably would not have been friends. But Steve was far from typical in that sense. And the longer I lived, the more I realized that the day he asked me in French class to be on his intramural bowling team was a life-changing event for me. I mean, it's just a treat to watch a left-handed bowler. I mean, it was just crazy.
I'll take you down, Grudge.
I don't know why that's funny, but okay. And seriously, I don't know why he befriended me, but I'm more and more grateful for it every day. I really am. A little story about the type of guy that Steve has always been. When we were juniors, my mother went in for an operation for what we thought was a routine thing. Steve gathered up some of the guys from the class, and he came out to the hospital on a school day to be there. This was just, supposed to be a routine operation. Who does that, But that's how Steve was. And I'll never forget the image when we walked out of the doctor's conference room post-surgery after having been told my mother had pancreatic and liver cancer and she had 6 months to live. And I swear to God, the image I have in my mind is Steve standing there, being there as my friend. So, as I mentioned, as the years go by, I realize more and more how meaningful those moments were. And that just meant the world to me. And I realize that more and more today. Over the course of our friendship, Steve and his family were just overwhelmingly welcoming and generous to me. I went on family vacations with them. These family vacations, they took me, to some of the greatest places, and they're just the best memories. And they spawned dozens of stories and legends, which I know his kids are sick of hearing about. And they continue to this day to generate just hours of laughter. I can't tell you how much I treasure those times. We went to different universities. Steve went to Michigan. I went to a local college, technical college, Lawrence Tech. But we kept in touch, and Steve always did a better job at that than I did. I must say, he's very good about that. And when he was in the seminary, we used to talk on the phone a lot, and I remember the struggles that he had at the time because he was always wondering which direction he should take. And when he finally decided to choose the better of 2 goods, which in this case was Heather, I flew to Colorado to bust him out. We were just talking about this. I flew out there to bust him out of the novitiate, and that was a rather interesting trip. Come and talk to me about it later, because there's some pretty interesting things. But, at that point, that was when I first met Heather, and at that point, I knew that was God's plan. He put them in each other's paths, and it was meant to be. There's just no question. And I gotta say, this is a little selfish of me, but I have a little experience with that because I met my own wife in kindergarten. I loved her then, and I love her now more and more every day. So I have some experience with the way God works. That's definitely...
That's taking a turn to how great you are.
I got the microphone. I'm just saying, folks, there is divine intervention. That's all I'm saying. All right, after Steve and Heather were married, and I realize this is just a walk through memory lane, but anyway, after Steve and Heather were married, they lived in Chicago for a few years. That's where Sarah was born. And then they moved to Boston, which obviously Heather's hometown. Sarah was just a little baby then. We were just talking about this last night. Since then, as you know, Benjamin, Joey, and Baraket were added to the mix. And to one extent or another, You folks in Boston know the rest of the story. Katie and I are privileged to be known as Aunt Katie and Uncle Brian to Sarah, Benjamin, Joey, and Baraket, and whom all we just love to death. We love the kids. And so we're so grateful for that. It means so much to have been welcomed into this family's life. And although we live far apart, we've made countless memories, and we've been on some wonderful adventures. And all I can say to Steve and Heather, and I mean this sincerely, and the kids, is a thank you, and we love you very much. That's not it. It's coming down to an end. This may sound a little odd, but to you folks, Steve's friends in Boston, I say thank you. Each of you, in some way, shape, or form, has been an influence on and a gift to Steve. He talks about so many of you so much, and it's nice to see the faces, to connect the faces to the names. And so I'm really grateful to you. I really want to thank you for adding so much to my best friend's life. I've always been jealous of you because you get to see Steve more than I, but I'm also grateful for you, so thank you. I could obviously go on all night, but I will not. Wow, I didn't think I'd be getting dogs so much from, but okay. I'm sure you've all benefited from experiencing Steve in your lives. He is genuine beyond fault. His faith and spirituality are unmatched. He is, bar none, the best husband and father I know. I'm sorry if that's insulting to anybody, but it's just how I see it. He has been for me a moral compass, a psychotherapist, a one-man audience, and most of all, the best friend a guy could have. I'm so grateful and fortunate for freshman French class. Thanks. Thank you, my friend. I love you very much. So if we could raise a glass to 50 fine years and a little Irish blessing, even though he's not Irish. May you be in heaven a half hour before the devil knows you're dead. Cheers to my buddy Steve. All right, and as I mentioned, we have a little retrospective. I think you guys, maybe you'll enjoy it. I don't really care. I think Steve and Heather might, so we're going to do that. If Nicole could help us out with the lights over there, it might be helpful. If you have to shift around to see, appreciate it.
Right, you want to